What is MOSA and why is this important?
And if that company goes out of business, no, it's not written down. It's not standardized.
That same part would be, instead of $10,000, might be $100.
But if you look at the graveyard of big companies that didn't adjust and adapt, where they were the market leader, and now they're gone.
Making the most of MOSA? Heck, I don't even know what MOSA is. Hi, my name is Rusty Humphries, but it's not my show. It's called Making the Most of MOSA with Jim Scott. Jim Scott, one of the smartest guys I've known. I've known Jim since the late 1900s, and I'm feeling very old now. Way back in the 1900s. And we're doing a show on something that, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business person that would like to do more things, scaling your business to be able to work better with government, and what MOSA means, you've probably done a Google search. What is MOSA? How do I get MOSA in my business? That's probably how you found us, and that's who the show is for. So we're going to be talking with you in a few minutes. Jim Scott here is a seasoned engineer. He's the CEO of a incredible aerospace company called Seco Seals. His father founded this company when he was working on the Atlas V rocket. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And so, Jim, as a guy that has been in the aerospace industry, you have worked with some of the biggest names in aerospace. You have engineered products that have been on rockets and on airplanes and in submarines and in boats. What is MOSA? What the hell are we talking about? And basically, why are we here? What is MOSA and why is this important?
It's super important. I've spent 40 years doing MOSA, and I didn't even know I did it until I started reading about it from the U.S. government. Is a process, a defined, important mission for modular, open source approach.
Okay, why does this matter? Would anybody care?
Because things, especially the military, where it's critical, they have to be plug and play. They have to work. There's war fighters. Things have to match. And what they found was, just like your telephone cords, you have an iPhone cord, you have an Android cord, and they keep changing around. Finally, Europe goes, stop. It's all the
USB-C.
USB-C.
No lightning.
That's right. Because they're not about selling phones. It's about selling all the accessories and profit.
Okay.
So, for me, it's pride, perfection, and performance instead of just short-term profits,
okay.
Right? And so we're looking for that. That's what you need because there's more profits and makes the world a better place if you do it right.
Okay. The other thing, as I understand it, and one of the reasons why this is good for citizens of our country, why this is good for Congress to get involved, is because some of the big manufacturers, and we're not putting anybody down, but this is how they've made a living for decades, is they'll make a part that's just a little bit off, just a little bit different size. And that little bit different size makes it a $10,000 part. If everything was the same sizes, you could make that, and it would be MOSA, right? It'd be a standardized size. That same part would be, instead of $10,000, might be $100 because it's all the same basic sizes. Am I close on what this is?
You're getting close. You're getting close. It's a concept, and it took months and months for me to wrap my head around what the process. So let's take the middle of it. Open source,
okay,
which are standards. And what are standards? Standards are something that experts write down, and they agree to it in a time space that's what they use. Like McDonald's, they use the same, flour and the potatoes and everything. You standardize it anywhere in the world you go. Because of MOSA, they standardize it, and it's open.
I mean, McDonald's are so standardized with their potatoes, they only get the potatoes from Idaho and from a certain general area of Idaho.
And that way, over 10 years later, you can have a Big Mac, go back 10 years later, and a Big Mac tastes like it anywhere in the world.
Right, okay.
Right? Okay. So it makes things the same. So food is not as critical as something that flies, or the medical field, or your car. You have obsolete parts. Oh, that's back ordered. And with supply chain interruptions with the international, that's not going to work for the U.S.
Okay.
At this point, I'm only concerned about the USA. That's where it's at.
Right. USA. I'm with you on that, brother. That's okay. I got no problem with that.
We can't take care of other people in place, so we take care of ourselves.
Okay.
Right? And the way to make it work is to have as much open source and standardized parts as you can in the approach, so it's plug and play. Take the example of Tesla versus Ford.
Okay.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
All right. So Tesla starts from the beginning and is one big computer with four wheels. Everything is integrated. The president of Ford goes, he has 150 different software interfaces and connectors. It's non-standardized. So with the supply chain interruptions, he couldn't build his cars.
Right.
Right. So he has to go back and he has determined that to make a car to keep up with the Teslas of the world, he's got to regroup his thinking to use open source. So now he hires a big amount of computer programmers to make it from top to bottom, everything integrated, so all Ford products will now connect to the same and be MOSA compliant, modular open source approach to doing their electronics and their hydraulics. So Ford parts will match and not be up on some third-party vendor that they need to release a license and be complicated, and they can't. They want to build and sell the best cars, and then repair the same cars and have the parts and control of the supply chain and the IP, right? And that's why all big companies are going to have to go more towards to survive. And we'll have a list later of people that didn't make the cut. They did make the adjustment.
Well, that's a good way maybe even to start, because I'm still, as I'm looking at this and thinking, I'm still trying to figure out what this MOSA thing is. Okay, I get it. We're trying to standardize things. But if I'm a smaller business or an entrepreneur and I want to do this, how does it work? So maybe we start with the guys that didn't do it and get an idea of, where they could have fixed it, and then maybe help us understand MOSA a little bit better. With that, does it?
Right. It's easy to steer, looking in the past. Right. You only have the information that you have at the time. But if you look at the graveyard of big companies that didn't adjust and adapt, where they were the market leader, and now they're gone. It's unbelievable.
Well, a good example, Blockbuster Video. Who would have thought Blockbuster Video would ever have gone away? I remember back in the day when the VCRs first came out, I was in Seattle, and I was actually there a couple of months ago, and I drove past this building where I bought a lifetime membership to a video store, which has been gone forever, but I still got a lifetime membership. But, Blockbuster Video then took those over, and then they were everywhere, and now they're nowhere. What did Blockbuster do wrong that we can learn from MOSA, for example?
Well, they weren't flexible, but they didn't have an open source approach that allowed them to, when the market changed with online and streaming, they didn't adapt. Netflix started out as a digital rental. They would send you DVDs to your house. Right. But they open the product. They determine that they're a entertainment purveyor rather than a CD renter, DVD renter, right? And so they were in 100th place on the NASCAR lap,
right?
And they went and they passed and ate it up, and then Blockbuster lost their stadium, and they no longer exist.
Okay, so talking about MOSA, what would Blockbuster have done right if they would have done MOSA, and what maybe could have saved them?
They could have changed their core principle to be an entertainment company rather than being fixated, and used open source, which is the online. They should have had at least an online component.
Okay.
And then they could have rolled it over and grown way faster. There wouldn't be a Netflix. They would have crushed Netflix.
Okay. So what Blockbuster should have done, I guess it would have been see Netflix and go, we should do that and move.
They saw it coming.
Right.
It didn't happen overnight. They were way big. They were 1,000 times bigger.
Okay.
And they were way out of their league, but they just didn't use a modular, open systems approach.
Okay. We're going to continue to go through that because I'm still not getting it. Let's go with Kodak. What could Kodak have done using a modular, open systems approach?
The digital camera was invented in their lab. The guy tried to sell it to them, and they said, no, we're a film company. We're selling film. And they could have just developed. They had so much money. They dominated. You remember I had Kodak cameras as a kid, right?
Sure.
And so they didn't identify as a digital image archiver, and they didn't make that rollover. They had the equipment. And they could have standardized, made a modular standard of that and licensed it to everybody, and we'd still have Kodak all over the place. But they didn't.
But And so because they didn't see that coming, they lost their market share.
They saw it coming, but they were entrenched. They didn't have in their systems. Big companies are like big boats. It's hard to turn them around, and if you do turn them around, it's slowly. So you have to wipe out a lot of the entrenched staff to go pick up or they have to adapt.
Was it that they thought film was better, and so we're not going to lower ourselves to digital?
We do what we do. We're the best. Leave us alone.
Okay.
Right? I mean, if you have 60% market share and you get, and then you have your the momentum of being a big company is hard to move.
Right.
You know, they have all their outlets and they're making money and the shareholders are happy and they don't see it.
I mean, there's a thing that's going on online right now where they have horizontal video, which is, this direction. And this is what everybody used to watch their videos on. Oh, let me use my phone here for a second. So you used to watch your videos on YouTube, generally this direction. Then TikTok came along and they went this direction. And so now everybody watches videos this way, except TikTok is making a change. They're wanting you to now start putting up this way. But who knows what that means. But that's more about them going after YouTube and trying to take down YouTube and destroy their competition. But there's a lot of people, including our friend Bill here who's running the equipment, that's like, no, bring back horizontal. I want horizontal. And that's like yelling at the wind and going, those darn talkies. I want the silent movies. That darn color. I'm going to fight it until the end because we were the best in black and white.
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on here with a lot of these companies that aren't changing to grow. They're not changing to follow the market share, and that's why they lost their businesses.
Well, take Sears.
Okay.
Been around for 100 years.
Never going away, that company.
Never going away.
Right.
Never going away. And then a little guy, Jeff Bezos, decides he's going to sell online books. Right, online, whatever that was, right? Out of his garage. And so he's selling books, reselling books, not even new books, reselling old books, recycling books, and he picks that up and he develops his process. And then he rolls into really the Sears catalog model, right, of selling things.
Instead of sending a big catalog to your house, the catalog is all online. You can page through it. You can search for what it is you want, as opposed to that big catalog they had to take pictures of and ship and mail, and then it took a long time. I mean, that's the difference, right?
Right, but that's 120 year ago technology.
Right.
That was state of the art with the catalog. You're in Des Moines, Iowa, and you want something from New York City, you could order it up, and it would show up in a month.
Jeff Bezos took that same idea, upgraded it. Was that a MOSA thing? Would you consider that MOSA?
He used standard products. He used books.
Okay.
That were just being thrown away. Or he took an item that nobody wanted, and then he presented it in a format that somebody wanted it.
Okay.
And then his cost of good was nothing. And he sold it at retail because you go, oh, it's a used book. He was a used bookstore.
Right. Okay, so let's bring it back to what I think people are watching this for is I've got a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to learn how to make my business more profitable. I want to be able to do more with working with the government maybe, and I still don't get this MOSA thing, and I'm trying to figure out how to work my business into this. Is this what this show's about? And can you help me as a businessman do that?
Right. So the only way to scale, in my opinion, is to adapt a MOSA and to sell to big companies and to sell to the government. The goal would be to sell to the government. If you can sell to the government, the U.S. government, it's a training. It's Olympic training. All the hoops you have to jump through. By the time you get there, you can sell to the Exxons and the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world. You have to have all these systems in place. And open source just means that you use as much commercial off the shelf, which is COTS, things that are already bought and you don't have to engineer. They're already done to you, and then you specialize your energy on those portions, which is your unique development. It makes you different.
Okay.
Right. You have a pizza place. You don't own a wheat farm.
Right.
grow wheat and bring it in, and you don't have a mill and do all this and a salami factory and a cheese factory and cows. You don't do that. You buy modular open source ingredients.
Okay.
Right. So there's a thing called a quality system. So is how do you document what you do so that we can go back and check it? Quality control.
Okay.
Right. On every product, whether it's a process or a product or an engineer, whatever IP, electronics, whatever it is, you have to have a quality system. Otherwise, you can't do it twice.
Okay.
Right. Even great chefs, they have special recipes, and it's a recipe, and you write it down, and it's fixed in time space. The common ones are ISO, and for aerospace is AS. And they have an international, they audit these things. You have to have these things. So when you write down your recipe or your design or your process, it's fixated in time space, and then you can pick it up 10 years later. Somebody doesn't know anything about it. They can reinvent it, redo, and make your recipe, make your product.
So why does that matter?
Because if you don't do it, you can't do it in 10 years. You can't do it the same twice. The way you get rich and make more money is you make things really complicated, really simple. And you make them redundant, and you write them down, and you can train average people. You don't need a doctor to put on a Band-Aid.
How does that help me get business with the government? And from what it sounds like is by doing the MOSA processes, it's easier for me to show the government what it is that I do, or bigger companies what it is that I do, to make it easier for me to get into their supply chain because they trust me.
This came out of the electronics for the military.
Okay.
So it's nothing, 2/3 of the helicopters don't fly for some reason, and it's because they don't have the right plug, and it's not working for whatever reason. It doesn't match, and then they got to send a tech down, and things aren't flyable, and they don't work, and they burn out, and they have bugs, and you have 16 different programs, and the programmer has to make a patch to make it work.
Okay.
So they've said right now, as we speak, as of this is 2024, but in 2018, they say, stop, U.S. Army. That's it. Enough. MOSA is the king. It's a line item whenever we look at a contract, and they've shut down and not bought a lot of expensive hardware because they weren't serviceable. Because 70% of the cost to the government of a product, like a helicopter or an airplane, is the maintenance.
Okay.
And they buy these new cars, these new things, these new airplanes, and they can't get the parts. And if that company goes out of business, it's not written down. It's not standardized. It's not modular. They can't add the upgrades. In computer stuff, or you have to.
Well, you got me right there, though. I mean, if that company goes out of business, that item is extinct. There's nothing you can do. If the company that makes a widget that works on that helicopter and it's important, that helicopter's dead, basically, right?
Well, you're on hold, and then they have this big, long procedure called a PMA, Parts Manufacturing Authority, by the FAA. You have to go in and prove it, unless it's a standard part. Standard meaning there's a set of national standards for everything from flour to asparagus to nuts and bolts, metals, chemicals. There's national standards. The government now and big companies want you to do as much as that. They don't want any special one-offs.
Okay.
That's the old style. You go, you make the $100,000 hammer and go, oh, it has a secret sauce, and make my 100,000. I sell 10 of them. I'm a millionaire.
Right.
And the taxpayer.
I want that bid, by the way.
I want that. Yeah. They make the business out of making things complicated in engineering. One of the things is United Launch Alliance, Boeing and Lockheed. Big, right? They're the biggest of the big. They didn't adapt. They used some standardized parts, but it was complicated. SpaceX goes in under a DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Administration. They have projects. They saw this coming, right? And their directive was to make me Elon, make me something that I can use with, I go to the hardware store, standard parts, and pick. And lo and behold, it looks like a Buck Rogers, 304 steel. It looks like something out of a movie, and everything, not everything, but a lot of the parts are standardized parts. And that's kind of how, where my company is. We've been doing that using standardized parts since Pops in 1958 on the Atlas V vehicle to seal helium gas on the LOX tank.
So the big difference is SpaceX is launching how many times a month? Is it 2, 3, 4 times a month? More than that?
They had 100 launches.
100 launches.
2 launches a week.
Okay.
2 launches a week. Think of the NASCAR model.
Okay.
They use standard interconnects, right? Because you see the pit crew goes in and goes, zzz, 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 pulls it off, pulls off the tires, pulls off the carbs, puts it back on. They use standardized, mainly aerospace parts, because they're engineered way beyond the performance of the cars. I'm familiar with my company services all those tubes. They use standards 37-degree interconnects on almost everything. So you take that concept of how can they service a car and be in and out in 15 seconds or 1 minute, or a dragster, they take down and they rebuild an engine in 30 minutes, right? Your car will be in the shop for 2 months.
Right.
Getting parts, right? Because you use standardized parts. They have modules. It's plug and play. Well, let's use a better one. Let's use the upgrade. You need to be standardized with modular, open source approach to building things. So, racing and things that are open-ended like that are on the cutting edge. They got a cutting edge of development. When they run wide open because they're just trying to win. They're not trying to make money.
So they aren't in NASCAR, for example, putting in their own little special things to make sure that they win? Or is it all the same parts basically for each car?
Same parts. You could take the mechanics' chests and the mechanics swap it, and they could work on each other's cars for the most part.
Okay.
There might be a little bit on the computer, sensors, but the tires are the tires. And if you probably look at the rules, the tires are defined, the nut bolts are defined, the safety inspections. They have to be standardized because they have safety inspections. They have to have a certain type of weld, certain type of metal, structural strength, and all these but they're open source standards that they're all modularly applying to it. And that way they can race. It's not run what you brung.
Right.
Right. It wouldn't be safe. They don't go fast. It's not as entertaining.
Okay, we're going to wrap this show up. This episode, we've got plenty more coming, and this is a show that we're going to do for quite a while because this is important. But as we wrap this up, isn't this basic knowledge? Isn't this common sense that people would do this, or is this a wow moment for some people in the business world?
Well, they're probably doing some of it, but you have to get. If they want to be around in 10 years, they're going to have to wrap their head around this whole issue and basically put it on a spreadsheet and be organized and be really serious because it's getting faster and more imperative. With electronics and your KPIs and people are getting smarter, to be competitive, you're going to have to be in this field. If you're in a hospital, if you're a doc, you're making shoes, everything is going to be rolling into this MOSA model and commercial off the shelf where possible.
Okay, we're going to talk about that more coming up. We're also going to give some more examples of businesses that succeeded or didn't succeed and why, and some of the stories in the news that is happening on how MOSA is working and making a difference. And so this is a great show to listen to watch, to find out more about so you can help your business grow, whether you're an entrepreneur or a small or medium or even a large business, how to make your business more MOSA compliant. Don't forget to give us a like and a share. Tell your friends. Let your mother know. This is a program. We're just getting started. And you know what we're doing? We're just giving you love. We're not asking for anything. So the only thing we're asking, a little love back. Just a little like, a little share. Let people know so we can help other people learn this important system and how you can build your business. For Jim Scott, my name is Rusty Humphries, and this is Making the Most of MOSA with Jim Scott.